Hello guys again, this is one of those videos from the series of videos thanks to Noel from Mexico. Subscribe, follow me, watch these videos, ask for PGN'S. As you know from recently you can get them on my site, but from recently you also have to pay a small amount of money for them. And of course, hope you're gonna like the content that's coming for the next couple of months. Let's get started. Today I just have to explain to D4 and C4 players how should we treat G6 modern type of systems. So after D4, G6, C4, Bishop G7, I just have to give you like best options for white and how to treat this early G6 and Bishop G7 against D4 and C4 systems. First of all, this is not like classical modern defense against E4, because for those who like D4, G6, and actually E4 type of lectures and positions, you can absolutely play and go with E4, and you can find this on the channel. I believe we have like 3 videos devoted to that approach. Also, after D4, G6, we have C4, and this is one of the first videos where I'm going to explain you how to play against G6 with C4. I also want to tell you one more thing. In this video, I'm going to avoid approach with the knight on F3. So I'm just going to try to give this knight C3, E4 approach, but without the knight on F3. Why? Because we don't want to go in the King's Indian and some other type of positions with the knight on F3, but we actually can keep an option of playing, for example, Hungarian system, Saravan system, and all those variations like Simon Williams line with Bishop E2 and Bishop E3, where the knight doesn't go early on F3. So let me just show you possibilities for black that happens after Bishop G7 and Knight C3. I'm not going to cover in this lecture any Knight F6 variations by black because it's nothing else but a King's Indian main variation. It is going to be topic in some of the next lessons. So in today's lesson, I'm just going to show you how to play after Knight C3 and when they play D6. So kind of looks like they want to go with the King's Indian if they play Knight F6, but we won't cover that tonight. And what happens if they play Dzindzichashvili or pterodactyl system with C5. Let's go with this Dzindzichashvili or pterodactyl system with C5. We always have to play D5, and variation that is considered to be very interesting for black, and I'm certainly going to do one of the videos for black. Here is bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and f5 that basically prevents e4 by white. This Dzindzichashvili system is great positional approach for black. You can't even imagine how many good games my students in the past with black pieces played here and how many great results they had. It's of high positional importance. How is white going to approach to the game here, and what is white going to do here? Because simply, if white goes with a very slow approach, with a very unambitious approach, that is going to end up very, very bad for white, positionally mainly. So that's why I usually teach my students, when I actually try to teach them how to play from white's point of view, to play either e4 or g4. Although in this lecture, I'm going to show you, in my opinion, one of the best systems. It's h4. You definitely can have a look at home at the variation e4, f takes, and f3, which in my opinion is one of the most solid approaches for white. G4 could be kind of wild approach because you just want to open up the game and use the bishop here. But I like this h4 move very much. You know that I like this kind of crazy moves. h4 looks nice because we just threatened to push that pawn up to h5, and I like further opening of the game is always in white's favor. That's why good players always will play knight f6, and after h5 will play rook g8. What happens if, for example, they don't care about h4, h5 idea and they just go with d6? You play h5 and they kind of have lots of difficulties already. We threaten to take on g6. Now h5 is open, h8 rook is bad. They have to play queen a5, and usually this queen a5 move in most of positions should be met by queen b3 by white. So they have to take here on h5, otherwise we're just going to take on g6 and win the game. And when they take, don't even feel tempted to take by rook on h5. Actually, do this typical maneuver, knight h3, knight f4. It's like very nice to maneuver your knight via f4, h3 and f4 to eventually h5, to grab that pawn on h5 by knight, way better than by rook. Because if you take by rook, they'll have knight f6 with a tempo. You bring your bishop somewhere, doesn't matter where. Let's say you go back and they have this knight e4. All of a sudden you have like lots of difficulties because you need to lose another tempo to defend this pawn on c3. And now you can't play bishop d2 because you lose the bishop there. Playing and placing your bishop in b2 is like, man, why do you ever play chess? I mean, what the hell is this? This is the worst bishop in the history of chess. And basically, you would just have to bring your rook to h3, and then it opens up some other possibilities for black. Just because of this, you just have to remember knight h3 move in order to transpose this knight to f4 and to eventually grab an h5. After knight f6, knight f4, knight d7, knight takes h5. When they take, and now bring the knight back, we can play rook h4. So what's the difference here? Position already got a little bit more open. And basically it means that even when they play knight e4, you shouldn't pay too much attention on this move because they're not threatening to take, at least not threatening in this position to take on c3 yet, because knight takes c3, bishop d2, queen takes c3, queen takes c3, knight takes c3, you'll have bishop d2 and the rook and the knight on c3 will be hanging and they will be lost. So just because of this, you have a possibility to play, for example, like bishop f4, or to play some, I don't know, maybe a4 move, or rook b1. Not rook b1, because then queen c3, knight c3, bishop b2 doesn't work because rook b1 is hanging. But you can just play something. Don't even feel tempted to go with f3 because of knight g3, and then you lose the bishop here. You have to keep the bishops in the game somehow. Anyways, this position is considered to be better for white, so just play something normal like a4, and just like you see, knight c3 falls because of this move. Queen c3 doesn't seem to be working because you take and play bishop b2 and knight is hanging just like rook. They can never move rook before that to take, because even if they do it, now h7 is hanging and we can freely take it at some point. That's the difficulty of this game. So after like bishop d7, f3 to prevent this knight e4 by black at some point, long castles, and bishop g5 to take, so you can take, or you can even play bishop f4. White seems to be better in these positions. It's a little bit static position, but it's nice. So all you have to remember, on h4, if they don't care too much and play d6, you just push h5, and when they play queen a5, usually you have to face that with queen b3, and when they take, don't take by rook, but play knight h3 followed by knight f4 and knight takes h5. Djindjihashvili players who play this line really well will play knight f6, and when we play h5, they'll play rook g8. This is the most flexible approach in this type of game. What happens if they simply, instead of rook g8, take by rook on h5? I guess you're wondering what's the real continuation for white here. Well, you just play e4, and all of a sudden we threaten rook takes h5 followed by bishop h6, checkmate. They have to bring it back. We take, and we play bishop d3. They have tremendous difficulties to complete development. H-file is ours, bishop pair is ours, diagonals are just open. We threaten to take on f5. We want to play knight f3, knight g5, knight e6. We want to play knight h3, knight f4, knight a6. We want to play knight h3, knight f4, knight g6 in some positions. Lots of threats for white, and this is like so much better. Point is, They have to show and play flexible here. They have rook g8, and after h takes, white has two options. For all those who are just interested in some crazy opening variations, I'm going to give you an interesting approach with g4. They can't take by pawn because you push d6 and absolutely crush them on the dark squares and open up diagonals and squares on the dark squares. If they take by knight on g4, you play bishop g5, threatening d6, and also you want to play e4 at some point. By the way, rook h7 is just coming as well. If they play d6 against your g4, you play g5, and after knight g4, rook h7. And if they play knight to e4, you play bishop f4 to cut the possibility of jumping to g3 and attacking both bishop on f1 and rook on h1, and you just prevent knight g3. So you just go with bishop f4 and f3. So this is why this variation g4 is certainly one of the most critical variations against Djindjiashvili variation. The main idea behind this move is g5, after which rook h7 becomes possible. Also, white goes for bishop g5 and d6 threats in these lines, and white's play seems to be pretty interesting and full of tactics. I really like this one. Although, for all of you, I have a more like universal type of idea. It's queen a4. I've seen this queen a4 idea in a couple of games by GMs. I don't remember exact position, but I just remember that one GM played it against one of the best Djindjiashvili players in the world, and its grandmaster Istratescu from Romania. Why? So queen a4 prevents queen a5, which is basically the main idea by black. Reminds me of some variations on French Portish hook line, where black plays queen a5 and play against these pawns on c3 and c4. So you play queen a4, preventing queen a5, but at the same time you prevent d6. So black has lots of difficulties to complete development. They can't play b5, they can't play d6, they can't play queen a5. They literally have only one move, and only good players will be able to find a good move for black here, and that's queen b6. Idea is queen a6 to oppose this queen on a4. When you play knight f3, queen a6, you know what? They spent like zillions of moves to remove this queen from a4. We have to take it, definitely. They have to take by knight. Otherwise, if they take by pawn, then you just take the b file and you get a bishop here. You have to be better. By the way, you just have to know the typical continuation in this position. You play knight g5, followed by f3, and then you go with e4. Don't forget, guys, eventually you want to open up the game and give your bishops open diagonals. So after knight a6, you play knight g5, you play bishop f4, you play f3, you play king f2, and if they play rook h8, you're going to put your rook on e1 and push your pawn up to e4, where you're going to not just take control of the e file, but also go after the backward pawn on e7 and eventually give your bishop some time. Take a look at the knight on a6. It really looks bad, and we really have to take advantage of this knight eventually. So I just showed you how I showed you like, and I gave you like a couple of alternatives everywhere. So just before we go on the main lines with the modern approach, or just g6 approach against d4 and c4 and its d6 line, I just want to remind you once again on this Djindjiashvili or pterodactyl line for black. So we play d5, they take, and they play f5. f5 is aimed against e4. f5 has the main idea by black, and the main background of this move is knight f6 controlling e4 and getting like a nice positional game after queen a5, d6, knight d7, knight b6, bishop d7, bishop a4, and black should be fine. Just like I told you, for all lovers of this system, I'm going to do a video on this line, and you will like it so much. Believe me, it's worth of considering. Although, if you just look upon this position from logical point of view, what's like our main problem? Pawn structure. So what does it mean? It means that we're not supposed to exchange pieces, and we have to avoid static, and also like a very boring type of positions. So how do we have to play there? We have to play very aggressively, and that's why I told you that I give you like three alternatives. In this video, I'll give you actually I gave you alternative with h4. I am also telling you, if you have some time and you're kind of researchful, you just have to go with e4, f takes e4, and f3 at home, because in this case you're just opening up both of your bishops. In the past I had like great results with it. And also you can have some fun with g4. But I believe the two main approaches should be either e4, so if you have time to research this variation by yourself, do it, and to let me know if you have some interesting ideas for both sides, but I believe white is better. And just like I told you in this video, h4, knight f6, h5, rook g8, h takes, and don't forget, I gave you once again two options, crazy and very resourceful in terms of tactics, g4, followed by g5, rook h7, followed by knight g4, e4, followed by knight g4, d6, followed by bishop g5 and d6 options, where you just go with some craziness and you just go with some pawn sacrifices in order to use the bishop pair advantage. Although my main approach is queen a4, where most opponents on your level will have lots of difficulties to complete development, and not even everyone would be able to find queen b6 followed by queen a6 plan. Although those who find that, you just go with knight f3, you just exchange, and then you just stick your knight on g5 and go with like f3, king f2, bishop f4, rook e1, and eventually push your move up to e4. So don't forget about this. You just play like this, and you have to be better because of these bishops. Now let's get back to the main positions, and let's go just to the systems where you play d4, g6, c4, bishop g7, knight c3, and they go with d6. I was trying to figure out if there is any other possibility apart from c5 here. Once again, I'll repeat that word, knight f6, which basically transposes to King's Indian, is not going to be subject of this lesson. And they just have to go with d6. After they play d6, I also remind all of you that I won't teach you how to play these positions with knight on f3, because we don't want to play those main lines of the King's Indian, but maybe you just want to play those knight e2 or knight e2, knight g3, or bishop d3, knight g on e2 lines, or maybe just bishop e2, bishop e3 system early. So after e4, in this position, black has three possibilities. They have e5, which is the main one. They have knight d7, which is very passive one. They have knight e6, which usually is move that people who play this early g6 like to do. And I need simply to remind you that if they go with knight f6, it's once again a transposition into the main line of the King's Indian. I also want to remind you that c5 is not anymore Jinjihashvili, because when you play d5 and they take on c3, that's not that position anymore, because they can't play f5, and we already have like full center, and we already have like both of our bishops being open. So they can't play c5 in that position. It's already too late for that. So what do they have to play in this game? After d6 and e4, what happens if they play in this position probably the most passive knight d7? You just play bishop e3. They go e5, because they kind of treat this position like King's Indian, but still they haven't committed themselves with knight f6, knight h6, or knight e7. And here on e5, we keep like the full flexibility. They also don't know whether we want to play f3 and go into Samish variation against the main line of the King's Indian, or maybe do something else. So for those who like Samish, you can play f3 here. And this is the main line, and it's critical lately for black. Apart from that, there are players who like to play knight h6, but here after they do knight h6, we're just going to do this transposition from different other moves. They can threaten knight g4, so we play f3, and this really looks like a Samish variation, although knight on h6 looks a little bit weird. So we'll play queen d2 long castle, and there is a great point behind this variation for white. We haven't committed ourselves with d5, we haven't closed the center, so knight on h6 is not as good as when the pawn stands on d5. So after knight g on e2, people usually play knight to e7. When they play knight to e7, there is almost like refutation of this line. We just go with h4. So knight is not on f6, it doesn't prevent h5, and we actually kick off with h4 and h5. So when we go with like h4, they can have three possibilities: f5, h6, h5. If they play h6, look at the killer positional plan by white, h5, and after g5, you play g3. Why do you play like this? Because after you play queen d2, you want to break on the king's side with f4. Very nice position. King is eventually going to turn out to be weakened. You know what? Especially because we haven't played d5, we have this f4, very, very dangerous attack on the king's side. If they play h5 instead of h6, then we go queen d2, we go long castles, and we once again go, okay, if they play f5, bishop g5, but if not, I can play bishop h6 to kill their bishop on g7, put my king into safety, king b1, and launch like kingside action with f3 and g4. If they play f5 to kill my bishop, I have two options: to play f3, absolutely flexible type of game, but I prefer placing my bishop on g5, and it's not going to be able to be jeopardized by any of black pieces and pawns afterwards. So this is the system. Once again, those who play this passive knight d7, you play flexible bishop e3. They keep like e5 flexibility of King's Indian options after knight f6, knight h6, original systems by black, and knight e7. But after full flexibility by white, knight g on e2. Once again, knight h6, f3, knight f6. It's the King's Indian where we play a good version of Samish variation because they already played knight bd7 and e5, and it's considered to be good for white. And if they play knight e7, we just go with this kind of refutation with f5. After f5, we just take. If they play knight f5, there is a very nice game played between Parlegras and another GM, where this guy played bishop g5, and after bishop f6 took on e5. After knight e5, played knight e4. If bishop g5, h takes g5, you have fantastic control of f6, and king is weak. h-file is ours. White is winning already. And if they play bishop e7, you just go queen d2, followed by long castles, followed by knight f4, and white just has a great game. If e takes f5, what happens if they play g takes f5? You just go with g3, where you basically prevent f4 by black, and where you want to play h5, h6, for example, where you want to play queen d2 long castle, or you want to play bishop g2 and complete your development, because sometimes in these positions white really has problems with the light square bishop. And now let's take a look at two other moves apart from knight d7, which looks passive. So there is a possibility of knight c6. I remember when I analyzed this knight c6 many times in the past, I had some troubles with white unless I played the most accurate order moves for the advantage. So what's the way to get the advantage? You play d5, and when they play knight d4, you play bishop e3. They can play e5, but then you play once again this flexible knight e2. You threaten to take on d4. They have to take, and you take the bishop. Now you have g4 option, h4, h5 option. You have queen d2 long castle. You have short castle. You have like a wide range of possibilities. You also have c5 easy for white, and white has to be considered easily better in this type of game. I'm not saying it's much better, but I'm saying it's somewhere in between, slightly and much. But white has like so many good options and opportunities here. So they have to go with c5, and we play knight g on e2. Knight is hanging. let's take a look at Grandmaster Donchenko and how he played against somebody who immediately released the pressure and played 92. Donchenko captured. This guy played knight f6, played castle, and played f4. He threatens e5 at some point, not immediately. He threatens on any a6, a4. He prevents b5, any counterattack. Places the king into safety with the king h1, and now Donchenko had idea of queen e1, queen h4, followed by f5, rook f3, and rook h3, and this very much reminds me of Grand Prix attack for white. That's one plan. Or what he did in the game was queen d2, f5, bishop h6, included that rook into attack, and after rook a2, f1, played rook h3, he won this game in like a couple of moves. You have to admit that this was a very nice and well conducted attack by white, and black is absolutely hopeless in this type of games when they take on e2. So that's why people play queen b6, trying to keep the tension in the center and trying to defend this knight on d4. This variation is considered to be bad for black, especially according to the latest analysis here and a couple of like really modal and recent games, but also engine analysis, although you have to be very precise. This is one of those not variations where you're supposed and allowed to improvise. This is one of the systems where you have to play very accurately in order to get like huge advantage. So this is bad line for black, so you have to play very accurate and your advantage is going to be big. If you improvise, position will be unclear, position will be crazy, position will be, equal, whatever, but that's not a point. He played very suspicious opening variation. You have to punish him for that. So after knight a4, this is the move you got to remember. So you're just removing the queen. And you say this queen, hey lady, please remove yourself from b6 because I want to take your knight on d4. By the way, they can't play like queen b4 to get on c4 because if they play queen b4, you play bishop d2. If they play like queen c4, now they threaten knight c2, you just go with a simple knight ec3, and they have lots of difficulties with this queen. Queen is almost trapped, and actually I even believe that the queen should be trapped like this and the queen is lost. So just like you see, it's very nice trick to win the queen. They have to play queen a5. You play bishop d2 again, and queen goes back on a6, d8, or c7. Whether they go on d8 or c7, there is a famous game between Gelfand and Osmai Parashvili played back to 1990. You play bishop c3. Knight is hanging, and bishop as well. They have to play e5. You take. They have to take by knight. You take, and what kind of fianchetto knight on g7 is this? Man, what are we analyzing here? Also, take a look at the backward pawn on d6 and take a look at the brilliant spot on d5 for white. We play queen d2, f3 was moved by Gelfand, knight f4, like defending pawn on c4 and controlling d5, and after queen e7, long castles, knight c3, and he went with g4, h4, and Osmai Parashvili got destroyed in the next couple of moves. So this is a modal game, how one has to show like great patience and like playing for a great outpost d5, also very weak d6 pawn as a backward pawn witness, and also holding the center with knight c3, knight f4, holding the d6 weakness with long castle and queen d2, but at the same time preparing himself for the attack on the king's side with g4, h4, and h5. This was stem game for this queen d8 system. Same thing happens if queen c7, you just play bishop c3, you take there, and for the rest of the game you play queen d2, f3, queen d2, f3, knight f4, with like absolutely the same ideas like from the game Gelfand Osmai Parashvili. Just like I told you, this is how you have to treat these queen c7 and queen d8 moves. But what happens if queen a6? Because they're certainly not going to take on c4, but they can actually go for some bishop d7 fighting against this knight on a4. After knight takes d4, bishop has to take d4. If they play this one, you just play c5 and say goodbye to your lady. So they have to play a bishop takes d4, and you play knight c3. Knight goes back to c3. And what is this bishop on d4 actually doing in the center of the board? Absolutely nothing. Sorry for asking, but what is your queen on a6 doing here? Nothing. Sorry for once again asking, but what is your knight going to do if you play knight f6, and then your bishop is going to actually be in the center? It's going to be exposed piece. Bishop on g7 for all these g6 players, King's Indian, Grunfeld, g6 type of original players, is like I don't know, like key essential piece, and they just have to keep it. So they're not supposed to play knight f6 before they waste another tempi bringing this bishop to g7 and then developing knight to f6. That's why after knight c3, bishop d7, bishop d3, bishop g7. You play castles, they go knight f6, you play f4, and I'm just giving you an easy plan. You just want to play rook a to e1, you just want to play and break in the center with e5, but I don't have anything against plans where you put your king in a safety and do like typical GPA player, play f5, queen g3, queen h4, bishop h6, and go with attack like this. Although, if you ask me, it's way better and more beneficial here to break in the center after rook a to e1 with e5. And finally, how do they have to play after knight c3, d6, e4, and if they play the main move e5? Facing all these years, this early g6 when I played d4, this e5 was the most common approach by my opponents. I'll show you one more like model game against the systems. So you play once again knight g on e2. This is pretty much flexible and compatible with the system with early knight c6, what we studied already, where I told you you play d5, and when they play knight e4, you play bishop e3. But it's also like very flexible and compatible with a system where you play e4, and where they can play this line e5, you play knight g on e2, and now they have two options: to take on d4 or to play. By the way, any kind of exchange, d takes c5, trading the queens off, is very pleasant type of an endgame for black players. If you don't believe me, let me just show you what's the typical plan for black. So you take, they take, you take, and most of you at some point can think like, well, this position looks great for white because this king on d8 has just broken possibility for the castle, so this must be, I don't know, looking good for white. It's nothing, believe me. You play bishop e3, they will just play c6 to control both d5 and b5, and when you play long castles, they can play king c7, placing the king into safety, or they can put the king on e8. So what's the point here? No matter what you do, they will play knight h6, f6, bring the knight back to f7, and you can't do absolutely nothing to your opponent. Afterwards, they can play a5 to take control of these two squares, b4 and c5, to play bishop e6, to develop knight d7, and they can also at some point offer trades of the dark square bishops. In practice, these positions, I believe, show like 75% of wins for black in comparison to white. So believe it or not, this d takes c5 gives you nothing. Actually, it's also very like similar with the video that I previously uploaded, like English red defense, where after d4, d6, c4, e5, you're never supposed to take on e5 because of the same approach and same reasons. So don't forget about this. And let me just conclude this lesson. So after d4, g6, c4, bishop g7, knight c3, and they go d6. You go e4, and they go e5. When they go e5, you have to play flexible, knight g on e2. I always teach you, don't show any kind of like commitments with d5, with d takes e5, just keep the flexibility on. And when they play like knight c6, you play bishop e3. What happens if they play e takes d4? I already won like 2 tournament games After e takes, knight c6, bishop a3, knight g on e7. Geraint Piquet, guy from the Netherlands, played many years ago, h4, and at that time that was like revolutionary idea by white, and it even works nowadays, and it's considered to be kind of refutation of this line, not like in a classic sense of that word, but it really gives white a great position. After h5. After h4, if they play h5, you play queen d2 long castle and play f3. Idea is knight c6 and to break along the d file with c5. If they play h6, I'll show you a model game. Garry Kasparov was white. He played it against Jonathan Spillman. Kasparov played bishop e2. Spillman broke with f5. Kasparov captured, and position looks fine for black at first glance. After queen d2, queen d7, a little bit surprising move by Kasparov, played short castle. Problem by black is when he committed himself with h6, he can't play castle now because h6 is just hanging. So he went on the long castle. And this is like a good example for all of you who want to practice initiative. I'll stop here for 5 seconds. White makes move and goes for initiative. Stop the video and try to find the move. Well, if you came up with b4, then you are on a very, very good actually track to become a great initiative player, just like Garry Kasparov. After knight b4, played knight b5, threatened that knight and threatened pawn on a7. After knight c2, Kasparov played bishop f3. Look at the game because it was beautiful when in typical Kasparov style. In the game was d5. I guess lots of you would wonder what if this knight takes a7, king b8, and apart from, like from many other moves, I believe knight c6 is the one that could work in this position, and you just go with a move like queen a5, and now you threaten, for example, queen a7, queen a8 mate. If they play like this immediately, queen a8, and they can defend this position even though they're up rook. So you just sacrifice everything. Although you don't even have to play like this. I mean, that's why black played d5. Kasparov took here, and after knight takes a1, took here and played queen b4. That's also one of the possibilities that we could have gone previously for. So after queen takes d5, Spillman had to sacrifice queen, tried to save this knight. Kasparov played queen a5, played f takes c3, played knight b5 threatening queen c7, went for that and played queen a5. This was a very nice win by Kasparov, only 25 moves. The game was played in Barcelona back to 1989, and at that time, if you remember, Kasparov was already a world champion and he was in a fantastic shape. So after knight g on e2, they're not supposed to lose this tangent. I'll show you one more line. If e takes, knight c6, bishop a3, knight e7. What happens if they play the main move? They don't play h6 because of that Kasparov's approach. They don't play h5 because of queen d2 long castle, but they play f5. That's the main move, and I've actually seen a couple of games played by Mamijarov like this. You take, you play h5, they take, you take, trade off rooks, and play knight to e4. Your idea is to play bishop g5 afterwards, and they have lots of difficulties to complete development. There are like so many games. Theory goes even further from here, but it's absolutely enough to know up to this point, and it's also very good for your confidence during the game to know that your position is already much better. After knight g on e2, knight c6 is the most flexible approach because he keeps provoking you to push d5, but we don't want to do that. We play bishop e3. Once again, if they take, we go with h4. So they play knight h6. We previously had a chance to see the same type of position with the knight on d7 and then knight h6. Here, it's even a little bit better version for black with the knight on c6 because it keeps the bishop on c8 open. And after we play d5, what are we basically going to do here? We're going to play f3 because they threaten to play knight g4. So we play f3. No more knight g4. We want to go queen d2, and we want to go with that Samish type of approach. We play queen d2, knight f7, long castles. I found literally more than 50 games by white in this position. I just need to show you like a typical plan for white out of 2 games. These top guys like Krasenko, Miton, Brozan Batista, I mean, these like really strong GMs, 2650 strength, they play the following plan. So after like uh, castles, you just play king b1, and you want to bring your knight back to c1, and eventually open up the game with c5 on the queen side and the d5. Any c5, d takes, and c5 is good for us. That happened in game Krasenkov. Yilmaz Zerli played in Warsaw back to 2016. When they play a6, lots of guys want to do b5 and to go with some sort of like counter attack. You put your king, like I'm always teaching, you want to play long castle, put your king on b1 and get a good position. They play bishop d7, completing their development. You play knight c1. That is another reason for placing king on b1, because you just open up the square. Why? Why is that so important? Because it gives you two type of reactions. It gives you better control of the d file. It opens up possibility to complete development and open up your rooks on the back rank. It gives you c5, and it gives you at some point knight b3. When is it especially important? When they push b5. I'll show you why. After castles, bishop e2, I'll show you two games. Miton Yanev, both guys are GMs. Yanev played rook b8. He wants to break with b5. By the way, somebody asked me, what if they try to break it immediately? Nothing. You can just play c5, and then you can just play knight b3, knight a5. Great position for white. If rook b8, this guy broke with c5, captured by bishop, played knight b3, played bishop d3, and played knight a5. Once again, knight took this crucial positional square a5 with even better control of c6 and the light squares afterwards. This is how Miton crushed Yanev in Bulgaria back to 2012. And finally, I'm showing a game between Brozan and Sami Shocker, grandmaster from Egypt. Very nice game by Brozan. I'll show the complete game. Brozan played g4. So I spoke with one of my good friends, GMs, and he told me, Mayo, do you know what's the most difficult thing for your opponent when you play on both sides? And here, you just play on the queen side with c5, knight b3, knight a5 ideas as well. But at the same time, you play on the king side. So Brozan played g4, queen c8, and he kept the flexibility with h3. He gives this guy option to close the f file, in which case he would suffer because knight b3, rook c1, and c5 would be game on one goal, and white would be positionally much better. So this guy didn't play g8 and played knight g8. He just wants to probably swap off these bishops at some point. Knight to d3. Very nice move, because it controls center, e5 and f4, but mainly supports c5. Knight f6. Like he's attacking both e4 and g4. c5. Typical break. Bishop e5, rook h to g1. Just take a look once again at Brozan's game. He keeps the maximum flexibility here. F takes, c6. Black decided to break. He decided to break to do like his best chance in this game, but it didn't work out. After g5, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, he sacked the piece. Brozan played bishop g4, nice intermediary move, and now made a great practical decision. He didn't want to keep like the piece, play knight d6 or whatever, because of some complications, but took on d6. And now he gave his opponent chance, if he takes like this, that he would bring the piece back, but then he would have a great passed pawn, attack on b7, control of these pawns, bishop on g7 would be terrible, this knight would be dead, and positionally, black would be completely doomed. So after d4, knight dc5, he keeps giving back this piece. That actually looks like impressive to me about this game. He also threatens knight e6 at some point if wanted. After bishop c6, wants to play b6 and go after this knight. King a1. So now even if b6, you'll be able to play knight e6, knight f8 with them. Queen b6, rook g on e1. Impressive realization by Brozan in this game. He doesn't care about the piece and puts all his hopes into the passed pawn. After knight d6, bishop g1, rook f4, played queen d3, and if you ask me, eventually he captured, brought this knight back played knight f6, forced this guy to go into this position, and the end of this game was very characteristic. He was up a rook, but okay, this guy had like 3 pawns for the rook. Queen a3 threatens mate on f8, rook f7, bishop takes d4, very nice tactics. Comes up with bishop e6, and just when this guy was hoping that after bishop f7 and I don't know what, he can get like some sort of like, okay, he's completely lost, but maybe some counter chances somehow, I don't know what, he came up once again, take like 5 seconds, white moves and wins. Guys, if you came up with this rook e8 move, then you're really good at tactics. This was game Brazon against Sammy Shocker, played back to 2015. Hope you like this lecture. It wasn't easy at all. There are like so many transpositions, there are like so many different moves, and at the same time I had to keep an eye not to play knight f3 because we didn't want to go into the main lines of the King's Indian. Hope you enjoyed this content. Thanks once again to Noel who paid for these videos, and hope we're gonna have like more of you who are going to do that. I actually got like a couple of requests, and we're gonna have like some regular lectures and orders by some of the guys who just asked me to do that for you. Thank you so much for this, and see you very soon. Bye bye.